yesterday, the whole of yesterday, there was wide publicity given to a statement attributed to a doctor by the name of Dr. Shamugaraja, who was heard speaking, according to reports, out of the Valley from the small area that the LTK is now holding on to, along with the thousands of civilians who are trapped inside and are being held there as hostages. And this doctor was heard saying that 372 civilians had been killed and nearly 1,100 civilians had been injured. Now, the media that picked up this story and gave it very wide publicity, for good measure, had in the background pictures that they said that they obtained from Tamil pressure groups. There was one I saw myself, which attributed the pictures, the images to a group called the Mercy Group, which they defined as a pro-Tamil pressure group. The images showed people running from obviously firing or shelling that was taking place. There was on one occasion an airplane, fighter plane, which was seen up in the sky, and then you saw smoke coming from a place on the ground, which someone who's looking at this whole image would think was as a result of the bombing that took place from this fighter bomber, which was hovering up in the air. And then it shifted to a place where it showed people in bandages and various very serious situations, blood pouring. It was horrible pictures really of these people just lying on the floor in most instances. And the commentary was that this was what was happening in the Vani as a result of constant shelling by the Sri Lankan forces. And once again I say that this story was attributed, the images were attributed to a Tamil pressure group. In one instance at least, this pressure group called the Mercy Group. Now, what was ironic was that the presenter himself had to point out in the course of presenting this that there was no date which could be attributed to this image when it happened. So then that in itself put a big question mark as to whether this was current or not, notwithstanding the fact that this was doctored. The whole thing was stage managed because we know that everything which comes out of the Vani is not independent. It is at the dictate of the LTT, under the control of the LTT. And obviously a Tamil pressure group coming from Canada, whom we haven't heard of, who the television stations chose to believe in, at least in the first instance, giving them the opportunity of showing these images that they have taken to the whole world. And along with that, there was this statement attributed to the so-called Dr. Shamugaraja, who was on the telephone. And he was asked the pointed question, where did this shelling come from? And Dr. Shamugaraja says it came from the government side. Now, needless to say, the commentary was on the basis that this was a doctor, a government doctor, who was commenting from the conflict area inside the no-fly zone, and 372 people, civilians had been killed and 11,000 had been injured. Now, what I want to point out here on behalf of the government is, first point, the most important point is, we stand by what we said a week ago, that what we reiterated in fact a week ago, that our army is not using long-range weapons and we are not using aerial bombardments. This is a categorical position of the government. We put this out as a statement about 2 months ago, then we reiterated it in a statement issued by the Presidential Secretariat about a week ago. And we are saying now, categorical position of the government is that we are still not using long-range weapons and aerial bombardments because of the civilians who are being held hostage there. We cannot risk the lives of the civilians, and we are not using these weapons which would give us an obvious advantage of very quickly taking over this small bit of land that the LTT is now restricted to. Number two is, we are of the view that nothing which comes out of the 1E can be independent and objective. Nothing which comes out of this no-fly zone can be objective and independent. We know that the LTT is in full control of this small piece of land, along with the civilians who are trapped inside and those public servants who have had to work there to discharge their duties. And there's absolutely no way that this doctor could have used a telephone, taken a telephone, dial BBC or dial CNN or dial Al Jazeera and said there is shelling coming from the government side and so many people have been killed independently. We know for sure that there may have been a gun pointed at the doctor to say the things that he had to say. The doctor would have been under extreme pressure by the LTT to come out with this concocted version. Ironically, at a time when there is a move in Geneva by a group of countries to call for a special session on Sri Lanka, as well as today in New York, where there may be a discussion on Sri Lanka outside the formal sitting of the Security Council. So all these things seem to be collaborated, seem to be coordinated, orchestrated together. Something is happening internationally. There is something state-managed in Sri Lanka. Now, we also have reason to believe that this is not the first time that doctors who are inside this small piece of land that the LTT is still holding on to has been forced to say things of this nature and have found to be, they themselves have in fact come forward and said that they have not said what had been attributed to them. Now, anyone could take the telephone and ring up a correspondent to the BBC and say, I'm Dr. Shambharaja. I'm the district